A couple little review items really fast. What are the steps of the sales cycle? Raise your hand. First step, sales cycle. Hello.
Pre-impression.
Pre-impression. Next. Next. Huh?
I think Trevor knows. He knows this one really
Trevor, what's
well.
the next one?
Create a need.
Attaboy.
Okay. Create need. Then you. Need. Yeah. Whatever. Fulfill needs. Doesn't matter. Then you. Next step. Anyone.
Resolve the concern.
Before you resolve the concern, you need to. How do you get the concern out?
What are we trying to do when we're on the
Close.
doors? Oh, we're trying to sell people.
Close.
Oh gosh.
And that, obviously, this is why this is really pertinent. A, we always need to know this because it needs to be in your mind when you're on the doors, or else you'll get lost in the many things that you can be saying on the doors. There's a lot of opportunities to start rambling on the doors. It's happened to the best of us. So we close because what we're trying to do is get a sale. So we're asking for the sale when we close, right? So from closing then, what we go to is resolve concern. That's what we're going to talk about today. So first, I wanted to talk about a little attitude thing. First of all, a lot of guys are really scared to close, especially first-year reps. You're scared to ask the person for the sale. You're scared to, my favorite close is, okay, we're going to be here Monday and Tuesday. Which day works better for you? And people are scared because they don't want to hear no as a first-year rep. Basically, what you're thinking as a first-year rep is anything that's not yes is no. And that is not the case whatsoever. With a sales cycle, when you close, that's giving them an opportunity to express an objection, a concern, an obstacle, right? You give them something that's lets you know that there is a barrier in the way of closing that sale. So, what we have to do, we close in order to discover what their concerns are. And some people you close, like Joe was saying a few days ago, we were talking, sometimes in the summer you get so confident and you're just so in the zone, you just walk up to them and say, okay, for me it was when I was in the area where there was a lot of Indians from India, and I'd sold a few of them. You just get on this like unreal confidence roll where you just walk up and say, listen, I'm doing Pintu, I'm doing Miraj, I'm doing all these people, and we get you on the route while we're out here doing them, we're going to do it for dirt cheap, and then just hand them the contract, right? You can close, and sometimes they'll be like, all right, what am I signing up for here? Killing bugs, right? Something. And that will work occasionally, but 99% of the, no, probably higher than that, 99.9% of the time, like that's going to happen. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, after you're done.
Okay, that's going to happen very, very infrequently. So that's why we have to have this step is super important, resolve concern. And we need to not be afraid to get there. To close, just do it without fear. You don't ramble. Just get up there, say what you're going to say, a little quick pitch. Hey, we're going to do a foundation treatment for a couple of the neighbors. They're just seeing the ants creeping on the inside, so we're going to do a preventative care, make sure that doesn't happen. We're going to be out here Wednesday and Thursday doing a couple of them, a few openings on the route. If you guys can work with us and take one of those spots, we can get this done for dirt cheap. Which day works better for you? And then and that's all you have to say to start your pitch, right? You don't have to say a whole ton. It can be 30 seconds to a minute. And they go, well, you should probably talk with my wife. And that is their concern. So that's why you got to close to get there. So that's what a little repass for today. So what I want to do really fast is get with the person next to you and just do your pitch. Really simple, very quick, going through the sales cycle and get to the resolve concerns. All right, guys. So we all did our pitches, right? And we all closed the person. Did anyone struggle closing? Yeah. It gets nerve-wracking, and you feel like if you just keep talking, maybe they'll eventually just say yes. And contrary, when people just start talking, your customers normally say no. So don't be afraid to close. Who here served an LDS mission? Okay. In your mission, do you guys remember the little picture and preach my gospel of the iceberg? Okay. That's where this little guy comes in, all right? So what's going to happen is if you have to assume, when they say no, it's not that there's really a no. There's usually some concern down there. Not usually, they're often. So in order to see, we really want to figure out if there's actually an iceberg there. If not, there's a couple things. So it's kind of a step process for this, and we're going to go through it really fast. So first one is a validating sentence or validating phrase. So I remember last year we went to Las Vegas for a preseason trip, and a guy named Clayton was there. And he taught us this phrase, and I used it a million times throughout the summer. You just say, that's exactly why we're here. And what that says to the customer is you acknowledged that they said like they had some concerns. They go, I'm probably going to need to talk with my wife. That's exactly why we're here. Tom down the street, he felt the exact same way. He needed to talk with his wife. There's a couple reasons that you're going to use this validating sentence. First, you acknowledge to the customer that you are listening to them. You heard that they actually said something. Because if you just blow it off like, I need to talk with my wife. Well, what we're going to do for you guys is go around the foundation of the home and just like dive right back in. Like, oh, well, wait, your neighbors are seeing ants. They're like, did you just hear me? I said I need to speak with my wife. So when you say, oh, that's exactly why I'm here, kind of nod. They're like, what you're saying to the customer is, I hear your needs. I understand it's there. And that's great. And then you can go ahead. And also, the second thing is, it gives you a teeny bit of time to think. Jeremy?
Good thing not to do also that I had to learn the hard way. Don't repeat their need.
Never.
If they say they need to talk to their wife, don't repeat it.
There will be a tendency when they're like, oh, I need to talk to my wife. Like, oh, you need to talk to your wife? And you sit back and you question. And then they're like, yeah, I need to talk to my wife. And if it was just something that they were saying to get you off the doors, it grows in them. So they're like, well, you're like, I need to talk with you. Like, what that says to them is, it validates their concern to them. So then they're like, oh, yeah, that's a great excuse. And B, it shows that like shakes you. And so like probably the first rule of overcoming concerns in general, and I was terrible at this throughout most of the summer, and sometimes it's still hard, is do not let it shake you. Don't, if they say, I don't think it's worth $500, you can't just be like, okay. When you deal with it, you just be like, that's exactly why I'm here. You know, like just absolute confidence. Because if they see that it shook you a little bit, then they're going to keep going with that. Does that make sense? Joe?
That's why memorizing a few validating sentences, even if it's just that one, that's exactly why we're here. You run into new customers every single day, but if you have that in your memory already, that's exactly why I'm here, you won't be shaken at the doors. Because a lot of people who are worried, I don't know if I can do this job, it's because of this main reason. They can't overcome that. No, we're not seeing any bugs. You know, that's exactly why we're here. We're actually doing a preventive service right now, especially around the bases of the homes, and then that kind of thing. Make sense?
You can make this validating sentence work for any excuse. Like, I need to talk with my wife. That's exactly why I'm here. Tom down the road felt the same way. But what his wife is really going to love about this, then you go with it. I don't know if it's worth $500. Hey, that's exactly why I'm here. Well, we're in the neighborhood. We can get it done for dirt cheap. I don't have bugs. That's exactly why I'm here. We're going to be in the neighborhood doing a preventative treatment. But before we get into that, let's just understand that you need to have this validating sentence. So I want everyone to say right now, that's exactly why I'm here.
That's exactly why I'm here.
Hey, guys. That will be so beneficial. I assure you, you will find yourself saying that a lot. And if you look in the training manual, you'll find there's a whole bunch. It'll give you a couple examples. I guess I haven't read the new manual yet this year. For some reason, I had to stop reading the old one.
You're on camera, you probably shouldn't say that.
Well, look, the old one's right here on my iPad, so it's just super nifty.
So I think that is a great validating question. The second biggest one that I use, and don't let this overwhelm you, obviously memorize that one and have that one in your ammunition, but the second biggest one that I always use is, that's exactly what your neighbor down the street was saying. I always use the neighbors. Because when you tell them that someone else is saying the same thing, but this is still why they bought, all of a sudden it's more real to them. They're like, okay, he's not just bluffing me. He's not just trying to sell me, and I'm the first sucker on this street. Like everyone else in the area, that kind of thing.
It's less threatening to them as well when you say, hey, Tom, that's exactly what was your thing you said? The neighbors felt the exact same way.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, your neighbors had the same concern. And what that does is what you can actually do, and Joe taught me this, you can resolve their concern. So you can just use the example of Tom, like you're here with Jerry, and you can use the example of Tom to go ahead and like basically resolve that concern and be like, what Tom did is this, and this, and talk through it without them feeling like you're attacking their concern head on. And so it kind of like subconsciously, like it neutralizes them because you're not attacking their concern right away. You're just telling them about another concern somebody else had. And so that's a way to feel less threatening to the customer and still go ahead and resolve that concern. So the first one, validating sentence, that's exactly why I'm here. Your neighbors felt the exact same way. Your neighbors had the same concern. look in the book. There's a whole bunch of them. Sure, definitely understand that. Sure, whatever, right? So this is important. So second, after you validate that concern, or while you're saying this sentence, that's exactly why I'm here. What you need to be doing in your head is thinking ahead of what's going to happen next. So for instance, if they say to you, I need to speak with my wife, you need to go ahead and identify which one of these three that is. Is that a question? I need to speak with my wife? Doesn't sound like a question. Is I need to speak with my wife? Is that an excuse? It's very probably an excuse. Could it be a real concern? Yes. And so you're going to run into this problem a lot. So let's go for a question first. The question you'll probably hear is, do I really need this? And when they ask you a question like that, it's a sincere question. All they're looking for is an answer. So you don't have to be like, well, what's going on? I go all the way through the sales cycle again. If it's a sincere question, you can just, they trust you as the expert. You can simply say, yeah, of course, definitely. Or you wouldn't want it any other way, something like that. Like, do I really need 4 treatments? You wouldn't want it any other way. And then they're like, okay, great. And then you can start the sales cycle over again, right? You can answer their question. To discover if it's an excuse or a concern, you go through the 3-strike rule, kind of. Typically, it doesn't take 3 strikes. It just takes like 1 or 2. But you go ahead and acknowledge their concern, like, I need to speak with my wife. And you don't really play to that super hard right away. So if it's an excuse, like, for instance, if I ask somebody what's their phone number and they give me a fake phone number, you ask them to repeat it back to you, they're going to be like, and they're going to run into a different phone number, right? They're not going to remember which fake phone number they actually gave you. It's kind of the same way with these excuses. They're going to give you an excuse, but because it's not something that really means anything to them, when you go ahead and just kind of blow by it, they're like, oh, what did I tell them what my excuse was? And so they kind of forget that excuse, and it gives you the opportunity to take them through the sales cycle again. Does that make sense? So we'll do an example here. Joe, I want you to be the salesman, and I'll be the customer. So I'm going to give you an excuse, and you're going to show me what you do with an excuse, okay?
Okay.
So you're just going to go ahead and close me.
Okay.
I'll edit that out later. All right. So go ahead and close me, and then I'll give you my excuse.
Okay, so we're going to be doing John and the Henderson family just down the street. If we can get you guys on either in between them in the afternoon or maybe later in the evening, we can do for dirt cheap.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be home at that time.
Okay, well, perfect. That's exactly why we're here. We're trying to take care of the things today, but we also have a few spots open tomorrow in the morning. So today what we're going to be doing for you is this.
Okay, perfect. So you know how he didn't go like, listen, really, we want to earn your business. He didn't like just go ahead and just go straight into that problem. He was just kind of like, okay, that's exactly why I'm here. Quick solution. And the guy, if this is an excuse, what they're saying in their mind right then is like, oh crap, excuse didn't work. Now what? And that gives you the opportunity to go ahead and take them through the sales cycle again and build value. And you will find that people you'll sell are likely, quite frankly, rarely will you run into customers that just come out and give you their concerns and say, yeah, these are the problems I have with pest control. Okay, now I want to buy it. Most people aren't comfortable, like people don't want to make changes, right? As humans, we resist change. So they don't necessarily immediately want to just say yes, even if what they're going to do is go inside later and be like, oh, crap, I should probably look through the phone book. I actually do need pest control. But they're scared of a foreign situation. So everybody is probably going to give you at least one excuse in your pitch. It's just totally normal. You just learn to get around it, and you'll still be able to build the value sufficiently so that customer will buy. So now we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to give him a concern, and we'll show you guys how you handle a concern. So close me again. Okay.
So yeah, we're going to be in the area servicing John and the Henderson family. If you just want to put your information right here, we can get you guys on board for about that same time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of chemicals.
Oh no, I totally understand. That's exactly why we're here. All of our products are very pet and child friendly, and this is what actually the Henderson family loved about our service. What we do around the exterior of the house is perfectly pet and family safe in all reality. We just apply this product.
So how's it going to kill my bugs if it's still safe?
Oh, don't worry about that. I mean, the Henderson family had the same idea too, but these products are all plant-based, and so back in the day they might have used those kind of chemicals in all reality, but now the products that we're using these days are all designed specifically just to target those ants. And so, for instance, these bees that you guys are seeing up here in the corners, you guys have probably tried to spray those down from time to time, right?
Yeah, the hose, the broom, whatever.
But they keep coming back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what my technician has, he has this pole that extends about 10 to 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
It's got this brush on the end that has this product.
Mm-hmm.
This product is awesome. Those bees leave behind this like sticky smell good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like how you're attracted to perfume, I'm attracted to perfume, girls are attracted to cologne. There you go, same idea.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is brush this product up there, and what they'll do is kill that sticky smell good to make sure they don't keep coming back year after year.
Okay.
And we're going to do this all the way around the exterior.
Okay.
So if you just want to put your information right here, I'm just going to look for a few more things right now.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So that was really good, right? So obviously my concern was, and it was a real concern, chemicals. If you will run into that with a lot of people, like, is it really safe for my kids? And if you know, or they won't even usually say it like that. They'll be like, oh, we don't really like chemicals here. And some people will just say that because obviously, like, it gets you off the door when you're like, oh, I have zero interest in your product because I hate all the chemicals in the whole world. And then they open up, they look in their garage, and they have a billion chemicals, right? They're just trying to say something to get you off their doorstep. So what you do is kind of, at first, you're like, is it safe for, like, oh, we don't really like chemicals. Okay, yeah, all of our products are definitely, they're kid and pet friendly. They're designed so that, they're going to only affect the insects. And they're like, but, like, is it really only, like, how's it going to kill the insects and not hurt my family? Then you're like, okay, this guy has a real concern. And then what you're going to do is, step 3 here, identify the concern. If it's a question, excuse, a concern. And then 3, you're going to go ahead and resolve. That's like the last step. So we'll throw that on here. And then I'll get out of the way of the camera, Joe. Sorry.
You're good.
Okay. So if it's a question, just answer it. If it's an excuse, you give this validating sentence. You don't really dig into it. You just kind of like acknowledge, give them a one-liner. That's really usually what you do, a one-liner. Oh yeah, all our products are kid and pet friendly. And they're like, but seriously though, like, I don't know, we're just really scared of chemicals here. They're like, okay. Now you know it's a concern, so then you resolve that concern. So for the chemical concern, what you're going to want to do, you acknowledge that. You're like, definitely, we totally understand. I mean, and then like Joe said, back in the old days, we used to use, the pesticides that you're thinking of, they were pretty crazy. Chlordane and DDT, they affected birds and they affected dogs and all kinds of pets. And the products that we use nowadays, they're designed to be safe. So they're plant-based, and what that means for you is that they're going to break down over time, and the products that they derive from the plant specifically only affect the nervous systems of the insects, just the way that their nervous system works. It's not going to affect you as a human. So in reality, like if you were to dip your finger in a product, it would be no more toxic to you than like a teaspoon of salt. And then you go ahead. So that's how you resolve that concern. Does that make sense? So then no matter which thing of these things it is, after you're done with this, you've resolved their concern, what do you think you're going to do? Back to the sales cycle again. And here's an issue that a lot of guys will have. So this guy has this concern. So back to me and Joe. I'm like, oh gosh, I just really don't love chemicals. And Joe's just like, yeah, all our products are kid and pet friendly. They're safe. I'm like, man, really just don't love it. Okay, definitely. So what we're gonna, the way our products work is yada yada yada. So then what a lot of first year reps will do is like, okay, so yeah, so like I said, our products, they are 100% safer and they affect the immune systems of the insects. They're not going to hurt your kids or your family or whatever. Great, so if we can go ahead and get you on the route, then we can go ahead and get it done for dirt cheap, right? The reason you don't want to do that is because then what's in the back of their mind still is they're like, oh, safety though. They still affect the nervous systems of the insects. Like, could it be that they affect the nervous systems of my dogs or my kids or whatever? So you've resolved that concern sufficiently, but if you give somebody time, like a human being, if you give them time, they can psych themselves out about pretty much anything, right? So what you go ahead and do is after you're like, yeah, like I said, it's going to affect the nervous system of just the insects. It's not going to hurt any mammals. It won't affect you or your kids whatsoever. Like I said, though, so a lot of the neighbors have been saying, do you guys always get these, like Joe said, do you guys always get these wasp nests up here? Yeah, oh, okay. I'm sure you guys are trying to take them down, blah, blah, blah. So take them back through that thing, and then their mind, you've resolved that concern. They don't have time to just think about it until they're just freaked out about, going inside and having a soda. They're like, oh no, I'm sure it has chemicals, right? So that's what you need to do is go back. Step 4 is start with another creating. And this step cannot be skipped. What you will find super often is this is what's going to mess you up, is you resolve their concern, and maybe it can be a very in-depth concern. I need to speak with my wife. And you take a good 2 or 3 minutes talking them through that concern, and they're actually like, okay, yeah, normally we don't make decisions like this. You're like, listen, if your wife comes home and decides she wants to keep the bugs, you can go ahead and call me. We'll take you off the route. But what Tom's wife, Jan, liked about the service was yada, yada, yada. You go through the whole thing, like, great. So like I said, if we can get you on the route, we can do this for dirt cheap, right? We can get it done, whatever. And then he's going to be like, ah. So instead of skipping that, you go back to, now, you guys have a basement, right? Is it finished or unfinished? Well, it's unfinished. Okay, the reason I ask is blah, 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 blah. So get their mind off of that. Always go back to creating. So now we're gonna stop here and do some role plays. So everyone partner back up and just start with the close. Somebody's gonna close you, and I want everyone to think right now of a question, an excuse, and a concern. And so each guy, I want each person to handle one of these, and alternate back and forth, but give them one question, one excuse, and then one concern. All right? So partner up, go through this, and when you close them, they give you that concern, and you're going to do, you close them, they're going to give concern, validating sentence, identify their need, then go ahead and resolve, go through the whole thing. We're almost done, so I won't steal any more of your time. But I just looked up in the manual, and I want to read you a couple of these validating concerns. For me, that's exactly why I'm here. It says in here, and I forgot to mention this, like I said, when people give you one of these concerns, when you have the objection actually come up, like being confident, like, listen guys, you're going to deal with this every day, so eventually it will become like this, but sometimes in that moment you become very nervous because you're like, crap, this person's going to say no, or they have a concern, and they're like, oh, I got to talk to my wife. Like, try not to do the neck flex. Unless they say, oh, yeah, man, I'm seeing some ants out there. Like, ants? Where? In the kitchen? That's when you want to do it, is to accentuate a problem that they're telling you about. But when they're like, I don't want to talk to my wife, you don't want to be like, and it reminds me, when I was in my mission, whenever I give a commitment, I'd be like, did you get baptized the 9th of January? And one of my companions was like, dude, why are you doing that? You seem so unsure of yourself. It's stupid. And I was like, okay, great. So that's what you want to do, is just play it off as nonchalance. So when you say, that's exactly why I'm here, you're not going to be like, no, that's exactly why I'm here. You just want to be like, of course, that's exactly why I'm here. Of course. Yeah, it's so comforting when you're just like, it doesn't faze you. I've realized something, this phrase will go take you a long way. If it's a big deal to you, it is a big deal to them. And if it's no big deal to you, it's no big deal to them. It's the same when you're asking for their credit card. If all of a sudden you get fidgety and you're like, oh, can I get your credit card? They're like, oh boy, should I give this guy my credit card? And if he's just like, hey, go ahead and go grab your credit card, they're like, okay, I should give this guy my credit card. You know what I mean? Like, that's how it works.
It's like your 50th sale that day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you want them to feel, is just like, it doesn't, like, you do this is what you do all the time. You're the expert, not a big deal, right? And it becomes not a big deal to them. So I'm going to read you a couple of the other validating phrases here. That's exactly why I'm here. That's a great question. Most people I talk to wonder the same thing. Actually, ... That's a pretty simple one as well. Like, so somebody said, like, hey, that's exactly why I'm here. And then you're like, well, what if they go back and it's actually, I treated it like an excuse. But then they come back and like, yeah, but really, $500, I should probably talk to my wife before I spend $500. You don't want to be like, well, that's exactly why I'm here again. So you can go ahead and say a different transition. Says, actually, most people I talk to have the same concern. And then, a different validating phrase. So actually, sure, then that's fine. Let me tell you what I'm doing for your neighbors. That's one that Joe loves. So, just to review really quick, we're gonna drop off really quick here. So validate the concern. That's exactly why I'm here. Identify it. These are products definitely 100% pet and kid friendly. If that's what the question is, right? If it's a concern, they're like, yeah, but man, my kid's pretty allergic to about everything. Then you go ahead and take more care of it, whatever. If it's an excuse, they're like, oh, gotta talk with the old ball and chain. You're just like, yeah, Tom down the road, same thing, same way. What his wife really liked about it was you guys get these wasps up here, right? Blah, 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 blah. Whatever you do to resolve that concern, so I would just say if it's a question, answer it, and then create a new need, right? If it's an excuse, play it down, and then go again. If you hear that excuse come back up, then it's a concern. If it's a concern, spend like 2 minutes maybe resolving it, and you will learn some excellent one-liners. I was telling Trevor some of my favorite one-liners. When they're like, oh, but I really, seriously though, I probably should talk to my wife before I spend $500. Like, hey, said, we're here to kill bugs, not marriages, you know. Say, listen, let me tell you what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to put my number up here on the top of this for you. We're going to go ahead and get you that spot on the route because I want to get this to you for this discounted rate. But if your wife comes home and decides she wants to keep all those nasty spiders, just go ahead and give me a call. We'll take you off the route. You can go ahead and shred this, whatever. You won't be charged, obviously, for any service that hasn't been rendered. But that way you can still look like the good guy, right? So, anyway, so no matter how you resolve the concern, once again, what do you do every single time after you resolve a concern? Create a need. Do not skip that step. It seems so tempting to just be like, yeah, our product's kid pet friendly. Want to go ahead and sign up? And then, I mean, even if you answer their question correctly, go ahead and create that need again. And that it's going to help you anyway, just to help decide if it's a question, excuse, or concern. Because if it's an excuse, they'll forget it. If it's a concern, they'll bring it up again. And then if it's a question, then it's just you answered it and you just moved on, right? And the more you take somebody through the sales cycle, typically the more solidified that sale becomes, all right? All right, so that's all I have for you guys for today. Does anyone have any questions I can answer about this? Anything they've run into? You want to hear any practical advice? Anybody? Yeah.
So when I was doing, I did like an excuse where I was like, yeah, man, my food's about to burn. I'm cooking right now. And then like said you can't really. I tried to be like, oh, or he said like that's exactly why I'm here. You can't really say that.
No. So what you can say, I mean, you obviously that would be an excuse typically because only rarely is somebody's food. If they leave their food for 10 seconds, I mean, think of what you cook. How often are you cooking something where if you leave it for 10 seconds, it's going to burn? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then usually what you're doing, I mean, they might actually have some food on the stove, but it's probably rice. It's got to cook for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So you just go, hey, I'll just be really quick. And then just keep going with it. And that's a pure excuse. And typically when you'll run into that isn't after you've pitched them and tried to close that person. If that happens to you, it's going to happen early on. They're going to open the door and be like, hey, just a bug guy here, blah, blah, blah. If we can take care of you, we can get this done really quick. Hey, I don't have time right now. My food's burning. Like, yeah, I'll just be, or you knock on the door and they're like, hey, just a bug guy, and they'll interrupt you like, hey, I got food burning. Like, I'll just be really quick. And then just keep going with it. And then their food's actually burning. Like, hold on 1 second. And then they'll walk away, they'll turn it off, and then they'll come back.
Right.
That's what will happen. And it will happen frequently. Or people are on the phone, and you usually be like, oh, hey, go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead and finish that really quick. And then give them a chance to be like, oh, we can't talk right now. I'm on the phone. I'm like, wait, you're on the phone with somebody from Russia? You can hang up and call them back. You know what I mean? Like, most of their phone calls are not life and death phone calls. So you'll run into these. Those are pure excuses. But those kinds of excuses typically happen before you've started with the sales cycle. That's normally part of your introduction. When you're like, hey, my name is Tyler. I'm out here with Terminix. We're just taking care of a few of the neighbors. Hey, sorry, I got food burning. Yeah, I'll just be real quick. Or they'll open the door and they'll see that you're like a service guy. And like it's like, well, he's not the wrong guy, so I don't have time for you. Hey, food's burning. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So typically those won't happen to you right here, but if it does happen to you, then you can be sure that's an excuse.
Yeah.
And you can be like, definitely don't want you to burn dinner. I'll just be real quick, and then just keep going.
Okay.
Yep. And you'll run into like, just remember, one thing that's a bummer is to feel like when you get out there and you start knocking doors, you feel like you're going to close every single door. The reality is, by the end of summer, by the time you're good and you've honed your craft and you are pretty smooth, you'll probably close, of the people you actually talk to, you're probably only going to close like, I mean, my close rate was like 1 out of every 20. So if I wanted to get 3 sales that day, I had to talk with 60 people. And talking with 60 people means knocking 200 doors, right? Because you're going to have a ton of doors where people don't answer. So a lot of it's a numbers game, and it doesn't mean you're not going to close every single person you talk to. You're going to talk to a lot of people. You're going to feel like crap because they're going to open the door, and then you're like, oh, my mom's not home. You're like, oh, crap. You know, that's not going to count as a person to talk to.
Yeah.
You usually have to deliver pitches for it to be counted as like a person to talk to, and they're like, yeah, I'm just not really interested. Close the door or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the way it works. Joe is really good. I mean, I might have been down to like 1 out of every like 15 at one point, but it just kind of depends on your confidence on the day. On the 4th of July, I was on such fire. I sold 10 people and probably only talked to like 30. Like 1 out of every 3 people I talked to that day, it was just like, yeah, sign me up. It's like, alrighty. But that doesn't happen every day. So just understand that a lot of it, it's a numbers game. You got to knock on a lot of doors. You got to work hard. And you're not going to be able to sell everybody. I mean, you're going to have people who are jerks to you who like just keep asking questions. Like, yeah, I was just having with you, just wasting your time. Have a good one. They'll close the door, and you're like, don't let that get to you. Just understand that these tools will help your close rate go from 1 out of every 40 people you talk to, or 1 out of every 60. When you first get out there in the summer, you're going to knock a ton of doors and talk to a ton of people, and you're going to fight to get that one right out of the 60 people you talk to that day. Like really applying the stuff in the manual, really applying these like finer details, like I said, honing your craft. That's what's going to bring your close rate, your percentage way up. So where you're not closing 1 out of every 20, 1 out of every 10. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Sorry, that's over. Anybody? Yes.
What do you do when you see like other companies on the front of the doors or
Like what do you mean?
signs, like
In their yard or?
yeah, in the yard?
So, like for instance, you see some sign that says like been treated by point pest control. Is that what you're saying? So for me, like I love when I see another company in the area. Like you always just have to figure out how to spin things positively in your mind. So for instance, you knock on this door and you see on the door that there's like, that they've been treated by some other company, or you can tell that they've been treated by some other company. To me, that says like a couple things. First of all, I love switching over competition because normally with what we can do is we have the ability to undercut our competitors' prices, first of all. That's really nice. I mean, who doesn't want to save money? B, our service is typically superior to other company service. So that's another opportunity for a switchover. And C, if nothing else, the fact that they're being treated tells you that there are bugs in the area, right? So even if you're not going to get that house because there's a receipt that says that they just got serviced yesterday and they're like, crap, they just paid $150, they're probably not going to pay again. That's okay because you know that there's bugs there. So you can go to the next house and without lying, you can be like, yeah, actually your neighbors get treated for some insects as well.
Yes, I do.
And you don't have to like retreat your neighbors. Obviously that's lying. But let them know that this is something that people in the area need because, yeah, there's insects in the area. Actually, your neighbors also get treated as well. And then go ahead and roll with it. Does that make sense?
Sorry, what?
So that's my feeling. It's like to me, it's like I get confident when I see. If you see a fellow salesman in the area from a different company, I scare them off because I'm bigger than them.
Yeah.
It's easy for you to say it.
I know.
Takes off the shirt.
And they were happening like one time that I saw a competitor in the area, and all I did was just like got real close to him and kept knocking and just act like it was not a big deal for me. And 5 seconds later, he's over on his phone calling his boss like, "I need a new area." And I was like,
Typically, you're supposed to.
I won that battle. So.